When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite. Obey your thirst.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. You're ready to move your business forward, but first, you need to find the right team. Start your search with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It can help you reach qualified candidates fast, ensuring your listing is the first one they see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. See the results for yourself. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Here's my 30-second story with Guinness. As soon as my sister and I get home for the holidays, we don't even unpack. We head straight to our pub. The bartender already knows our order, Guinness and fries. We laugh all night, catch up with old friends, and walk home with faces sore from smiling. It's one of my favorite nights of the year. That was my 30-second story with Guinness.
Guinness Draft Stout. Please enjoy responsibly. Imported by Diageo Beer Company, USA, New York, New York.
Welcome along to Mutchy and Denno. This is our Christmas special edition. How are you, Andy and Robbie?
All
Very
good,
well,
John.
Johnny. All good.
That's great to hear it. If you are listening to this, you can get in touch with us on Instagram, which is at Mutchy and Denno. And you can also email the show, which is mutchyanddenno@outlook.com. We're on board with Sports Social, but we are still looking for a title sponsor, a main sponsor. So if you are interested in getting involved, please get in touch. Right, we're going to talk about away days for this episode. Mutchy and Denno have obviously played in plenty of them. I've sort of been on the in the stands looking down at them in my childhood and looking down at the more recent team. What probably inspired this one, lads, was I was in the away end at Arsenal for the Arsenal game on the Saturday that we lost 2-1 in the most heartbreaking circumstances imaginable. Did you see any of it?
Yep,
Yeah.
saw most of it, Johnny. Heartbreaking it just about it just about sums up the whole season so far, really, doesn't it? You know what I mean? They actually put in quite a good performance against the side that are flying at the moment, especially at home. Defensively well organised, but to concede the 2 goals the way they did was just cruel on everyone. But that's the roller coaster of football, isn't it? Really, the emotions of being a football fan, being in the away ends and watching that. It brings it all back to the fact that they're struggling at the minute. They're struggling with confidence, and whenever things like that go against as well with regards to luck, then just it seems like the world's against you, doesn't it? So I'm sure you went through loads of emotions the other night in the away end, which it was cruel, but unfortunately that's football at the minute.
That is football. Do you know what? I thought the days of celebrating madly are gone. I actually don't think I've celebrated an equaliser or any Wolves goal more than I celebrated that one from Tolu when it went in. I'd had a brutal day. I was up at 5 a.m. to then get across to Norwich to cover the Norwich match for Sky, which was a 12:30 kickoff. I then got a train back into London Liverpool Street, went across up to Islington, met a mate of mine who I play Sunday League football with. He was a Newcastle fan who came along, and then we had a couple of pints and we went in the ground, met up with a couple of other people, and it was brilliant. And the Arsenal away end is absolutely fantastic. It's on the corner. It's a brilliant view. Arsenal fans are so quiet. They make no noise whatsoever. So it feels like it's just all Wolves, and you feel you're right in it. And as I say, I don't think I've ever celebrated a goal as much as that equaliser. But then I thought, 6 minutes, can we hang on for 2 or 3 more? But it never happened. It never happened, did it? In terms of your own experiences of away days, back when you were a player, were there any venues in particular, Mutchy, that you like going to with Wolves?
I enjoyed going to all the grounds because I think the greatest thing about playing away from home for Wolves was the amount of supporters that actually attended the games. So that made every game a real exciting situation, you know what I mean? So I really enjoyed all the places I played. You know, we can look at some of the top grounds, you know, Newcastle's ground, plenty of top places to go to, and what you wanted to do was play the best you could and let other people from other towns see what you were about, you know what I mean? So yeah, I really enjoyed that.
That's a good point that Mutchy makes there, Denno, about Wolves fans filling it, because right at the start of the journey that you two both took Wolves on, probably the 87-88 season, it must have been great going to these tiny grounds in the 4th Division and seeing Wolves fans fill them out.
It was like playing at home, Johnny, wasn't it? I don't think the towns where Wolves fans took over were particularly glad to see them coming. But now, listen, whenever we went to any grounds in the old 4th Division, you know, you might have been getting crowds of 6,000-7,000, and probably half of those at least were Wolves fans, you know. And that, whenever you get in a run of winning games and doing well, and you've got support like that, then it just carries you along. But as much as he says, you know, all the grounds that we went to at that time, there was character about them as well. You know, we played in a lot of stadiums, and there's quite a few of the stadiums have changed now, you know, with regards to, you know, Roker Park, Sunderland, we played there whenever it was the old Roker Park, Upton Park, West Ham, whenever we played there. And they were grounds that were always, they felt as if the crowd was on top of you, you know, and that added to the atmosphere, the whole of the games. Really intense, but being the away team, it was enjoyable as well, because that's what it's all about. The atmosphere makes football, really, for me, and those old grounds and what we enjoyed then was just fantastic, really.
In terms of the grounds that had character, Mutchy, what were the ones that come to you off the top of your head?
Sheffield Wednesday, Sunderland, like Robbie said, West Ham, like Robbie said, they were tremendous grounds. They had brilliant support, and the atmospheres were electric because they were right on top of you. Obviously, there was plenty of Wolves fans there as well, so it lent for real brilliant atmospheres. I remember playing at Roker Park, and Sunderland got a penalty right near the end, and we lost 1-0, and it was a bitter pill because we played absolutely brilliant. We had, but these things happen. But it's all down that neck of the woods, you know. That they were always great grounds to go to. Middlesbrough, Erson Park, you know, they're all old-fashioned grounds. Obviously, as times moved on, they've changed, and so there's obviously grounds now which I've never played at, but I've never even been to, if you know what I mean. You know, you went to the Arsenal game the other night, and I've never been near Arsenal's ground ever. You know, some tremendous places to go to, and like Robbie said, you know, you play away at Halifax or you play away at Torquay, them type, and you know, they were brilliant because we had the whole ground to the Wolves fans virtually. They were all occasions, you know, they were all real occasions. Plymouth away, you know, they were, all that was so it always made for great football. And I really love playing away for Wolves because, yeah, I'm not saying the true supporters, but a lot of the away fans, you know, they put a lot of money out of the pocket in, and all the travelling and getting up early and doing what they did, and they came in the droves, so it was absolutely fantastic.
I love the fact that you've just referenced Halifax Town, the Shay. I went to the Shay, but not watching Wolves. I went there with a Cardiff City fan when I was living up in Leeds, actually, and it was great fun. That away end would just look like this sort of, it was just like a tarmac bank. It was barely a bank as well. I think it was fairly flat. It was really weird. Do you remember the Shay, Robbie?
It was one of the first away games I had with Wolves whenever I first joined. I think we went on a Tuesday night. It was absolutely lashing down most of the day.
Always raining.
Honestly, it was. But there was still. Well, as I said before, there's probably 6,000 of the game, and I'm sure there's about 4,000 Wolves fans. They were on that bank behind the goals, uncovered, and I think we won the game 4-3, 4-2 on the evening. I'm sure Mutchy got a couple maybe that night, which was good for Mutchy, but it was. But they used to take over the grounds. I grew up in the Irish League where the grounds weren't great, so it wasn't a shock to me whenever you went to places wherever I went to, and you're thinking, well, small change rooms and all that sort. That was never a shock to me, and the pitches weren't great, so all that stuff wasn't a shock or a problem to me. So I just enjoyed going, playing the games, and getting on with things. But whenever you look at the other grounds that we played at as well, like the of Ellen Road, the atmosphere that there was at Ellen Road, Mutchy, whenever.
Yeah.
I remember playing them whenever Howard Wilkinson was manager at the time, and they were flying. I think they actually got promoted that season, but we played them there. They beat us 1-0. I think Bobby Davison scored early on in the game, 1-0, and they had Vinnie Jones, Dave Boddy playing centre midfield for them. So they're never going to be passing it out from the back that night, were they, really? You know what I mean? So, but that day, the atmosphere, I just remember the Wolves fans who were, it wasn't very often you didn't hear the Wolves fans, but that day they had, I think it was only 1,000 tickets, and there was a slither in the corner of Wolves fans in the 30,000 ground and crowd that night. And I just remember thinking that was the first time the atmosphere of the home fans and everything took over the Wolves fans, because it was really intimidating. There wasn't intimidating on the pitch, but it was really intense and intimidating all around the ground and stuff, and really enjoyable to play in.
Were they the worst changing rooms in the world, weren't they? It was like, it was just like a square box, and there was no toilets in there or nothing. You had to go to a communal toilet where the Leeds players used it and we did. And I'm in the toilet one day and Vinnie Jones walks in and I'm going, oh my God, I'm thinking, you know what I mean? Because he was a beast of a man, wasn't he? But like Robbie said, what a side they were that went up. They had Strachan playing from Chapman. Remember him up front as well, the big Chapman fella? Yeah. He used to bang a few in for him. But in the return game that season, we beat them 1-0 at our ground, Robbie, didn't we? Mervyn Day was in nets for Leeds that day.
Yeah, good side, really good side.
That's when Batty ran off the pitch.
It did,
Did you score in that reserve game much? Return game?
The return, I thought you'd never asked that question.
I thought you mentioned it for a reason.
Well, the funny thing was, though, when the game finished and we'd and then I'm travelling back up north, I stopped off at this petrol station. Anyway, next minute, this van pulls in and about 14 skinheads from Leeds got out. And I went, oh my God, and this lad come running up to me, says, hey, are you Mutch? I went, yeah. He went, I'm Psycho from Doncaster, he said. And I went, oh my God. Anyway, luckily, he said, would you play for Leeds, would you? I said, oh, of course I would. And then he was made up with me then, you know what I mean? And I thought, oh my goodness, you know. And there was thousands of them going back to, obviously, back to Yorkshire after the game, you know what I mean? But I just wasn't thinking. And so, you know, but that was quite a turn, if you know what I mean.
But they travelled in their thousands as well, didn't they? They were a great supported. Well, they still are a great supported side. And you look at the atmosphere the other night at the game, watching the game with telly and stuff, and they're an impressive club still.
Yeah, they are. In that return game, Mutchy, if I remember rightly, did one of their players do a shambolic back pass and you just nipped in?
It was Batty, wasn't it?
David Batty, yeah.
Yeah, because it was funny, after the game, he'd run off the pitch at one stage, just right out the blue. And I was thinking, where's he gone? Right, and obviously he goes down the tunnel and all that. Anyway, apparently he had an upset stomach, didn't he? Because after the match, I spoke to him, said, where did you go? He said, oh, my stomach, I just had to run off the pitch, because you couldn't do that in them days, you know what I mean? You weren't allowed to leave the pitch unless you got permission. And he just ran off straight down the tunnel. But it was him that did the back pass, as it happens, yeah. And I rounded Mervyn Day quite easily, you know what I mean? And
I remember that, yeah, very
slotted it in.
I'm fascinated by the toilets at Ellen Road, though. You genuinely had to share urinals with the Oppo at Ellen Road.
Honestly. And funny enough, I went back with Swindon to play at Leeds. It wasn't really a good hunting ground for us. We got beat 3-0 there, so we lost with Wolves and lost with Swindon. But Frankie Worthington was a big mate of John Gorman's, and he was doing training with us for the week, you know, and I was waiting for some brilliant coaching, if you know what I mean, because he was such a brilliant player. And all he said was, hit the cage, hit the cage. Hit the cage, he kept going all the time. But anyway, when we got beat that day, he was outside the changing room door before we kicked off, right? The door opens, and basically it was just a square room, and I was actually opposite the door, and he's standing there with his cowboy hat on and his cowboy boots, and he looked absolutely brilliant, and I went, hey, Frankie, you look the bollocks there, lad. and everyone was laughing like mad, you know. But yeah, it was a shambles of a changing room.
Did you notice when you went... Obviously, the point you're both making is you went to some places, and that game at Ellen Road in particular was the first time you noticed the Wolves fans were genuinely finding it hard to make an impact. I guess when you were in the 3rd and 4th division, it felt like Wolves were taking over the place. But when you got up to the 2nd division, and there were teams like West Ham, Leeds, Middlesbrough, and it suddenly felt like the balance of power was changing. Would that maybe right?
I think they didn't take over the away grounds the way they had done in the 3rd and 4th, yeah. But because there's a lot of big clubs in the Championship. Whenever we first went into it, I think Mutchy mentioned Sheffield Wednesday as well. Sheffield Wednesday was a fantastic ground, really. Unfortunate to see what's happening to them now, you know. But the pitch itself, I used to love playing it because it's big, wide open pitch. Always at a decent surface, and you could play a bit as well. But the higher you went up, then obviously you were playing against sides that were big clubs as well, and obviously they brought a lot of support away from home, and also had good support at home. So yes, the balance of power with regards to Wolves taking over grounds had changed a little bit. But just a quick story. I love playing at Upton Park. We played at Upton Park. It was the last game of the season, Mutchy, wasn't it, whenever the World Cup was being picked, the squad for the World Cup was being picked. That would have been 1990, wouldn't it, Italy?
Yes.
1990, and Bobby Robson was there to watch Bully at the time. And I think even the West Ham fans were singing for Bully to be in the squad. You know what I mean? So, but anyway, it was a nothing game because neither of us could get in the playoffs. So, but basically they were doing reasonably well at the time. They had a really good side at the time, actually, Kevin Keane and people like that. But the thing I remember about that game was it was Liam Brady's last game.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, come on.
Unbelievable, by the way.
But he was fantastic. You know what I mean? I know he's Southern Ireland and Republic and all that sort of stuff, but he was a fantastic footballer. But I remember that being his last game at Upton Park, and I think he came on with about 20 minutes to go, Mutchy, and they were beating us 3-0. Yeah. We had gone in the season. Our legs had gone, and we just wanted the season to finish a bit. But anyway, he got the ball outside the box, outside the left foot, and bent it into the top corner. And there must have been about 500 or 600 people running on, and they were all patting him on the back, all the West Ham fans and all. But anyway, at the end of the game, final whistle goes. We'd lost 4-0. We got absolutely battered, right? And I made my way to Liam Brady. And I said to him, any chance of your shirt, Liam? It was his last shirt and he was going to be playing in, right? Any chance of your shirt? And he says, no, he says, I promised it to somebody else, right? And then I came away thinking, I shouldn't really have done that, should have? Because if I'd have walked into the change rooms, right, after getting absolutely battered 4-0, and I've got Liam Brady's shirt on in my pocket, you know what I mean? I just imagine what the gaffer's going to say, But he was a fantastic player, and it was a treat just to see him play. Actually, the goal that he scored was absolutely amazing.
It was, wasn't it, Robbie? Because I actually didn't play that day, and I was in the director's box watching the game. When he came on and he bent it in the way he did, I thought, well, that just rounds off an absolute unbelievable career, because what a player he was, wasn't he?
He was. He's fantastic.
Yeah. What a goal that was that day, and it was so fitting, as you said, because it was his last game, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know if it was his last game. Was it his last game at home? Was it last game of the season, was it?
No, it was the last game of the season, Mutchy. It was just the squad was being picked for the World Cup, last game of the season.
Right.
We got absolutely battered. It was a roasting hot day. We got absolutely battered.
Yeah,
and that was his last game in English football, yeah.
The gaffer dropped me in the lift. I got in the lift to go down at the hotel, and he was in there, and he says, by the way, but what? He says, you're not playing today. I went, all right. Yeah, that's true. He played Tomo up front.
Did he?
With Bully, yeah. Don't you remember?
Tomo played up front with Bully.
Tomo played up front with Bully that last game of the season.
Big man, wee man, is that what they were going for, were they?
It was like Toshak and Keegan, wasn't it? Hey?
That's I didn't remember that much, didn't remember that.
Yeah. Oh, I never forgot that, don't worry.
Was there a big pitch invasion at the end of that match?
Yes.
That's right. And they're all after Liam Brady, including Robbie.
Yeah,
yeah.
I actually got to him first, Johnny, but unfortunately, but the thing about it was that what I do remember at the end was the West Ham fans, quite a few of them got onto the pitch, but it was all okay. You know what I mean? They went down to the Wolves fans, and they were all singing about Bully going to the World Cup, and the West Ham fans were joining in. And both sets of fans were supporting the fact that they wanted Bully to go to the World Cup, and he ended up going then, didn't he? So he was kind of flavour of the month at that time, Bully, He sort
of represented a lot of fans, didn't he? He looked rough and ready, straight off the sort of non-league scene. So I think even though he scored lots of goals against lots of other teams, I imagine supporters of other clubs, especially outside the top division at that time, could probably identify with him. I think the way, from where he came from, really, to be a local lad, reasonably local to Wolverhampton, and to play for as long as he did and score the amount of goals, then obviously it's a bit of Royal Rovers, isn't it, really? You know what I mean? Where it's not really someone just comes through the ranks, scores all those goals and becomes a hero at the club. And I think a lot of people could associate with that kind of, probably would have liked it to happen to them, didn't it? But Bully was just phenomenal over that period of time, really. And yes, all the other clubs probably looked at it and thought, we wish he was playing for us, but we had the benefit of it.
Well, the thing is, I agree with you, Rob, but my thoughts on Bully, right, is he was tough. And he played like he was tough on the pitch. Yeah. And I think the punters in the terraces recognised that, because obviously they all wanted to be football lads, and they play Sunday League football and all that type of stuff. And then obviously come and watch Wolves, and because he was local, you know, that was a big help. But, you know, imagine if he hadn't done very well, it'd have been tough for him, wouldn't it? But he was tough. You know, that identity he had, right, was what everybody liked, not just Wolves fans. I think all people across the country used to... I've never heard anyone say a bad word about Bully, about his footballing career, if you know what I'm saying, playing for England B team, the first team for England, scored goals. You know, he played at every level. You know, he just didn't end up in the Premier League, but that was nothing to do with him, because he could have gone there any time he wanted, really. He stayed loyal to Wolves, and, you know, good on him for doing that.
For years and years after, when I used to sort of, whether or not I was away at uni or work, and then you'd speak to someone in a pub, or someone, you'd be introduced to a new workmate, and they'd ask you who you supported, and you'd say Wolves. They'd say, oh, Bully, and all that. It was mad how he sort of did put the club on the map, and sort of gave it that identity at that time. And he was someone that other fans were really, really aware of.
This episode is presented by State Farm. Having insurance isn't the same as having State Farm. It's like needing the protection of an offensive guard on the football field, but getting an elementary school crossing guard. Sure, they're both guards, but you can only trust one to keep your quarterback safe when the game is on the line. So don't settle for just any insurance when there's State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
The Who's down in Who Newville were making their list, but some didn't know Walmart has the best brands for their gifts.
What about toys? Do they have brands kids have been wanting all year?
Yep, Barbie, Tony's, and Lego. Gifts that will make them all cheer.
Do you mean they have all the brands I adore?
They have Nintendo, Nespresso, Apple, and more.
What about...
So the Who answered questions from friends till they were blue. Each one listened and shouted, from Walmart? Who knew? Shop gifts from top brands for everyone on your list in the Walmart app.
This episode is brought to you by McAfee.
Yes! Playoff tickets! Just need to click here and... Wait, what? Fake site? Good thing McAfee threw the red flag. That would have been $400 gone.
McAfee blocks risky sites so you don't pay for seats and other things that don't exist. Plans start at just $39.99 for your first year. That's cheaper than parking on game day. Learn more at McAfee.com/online protection.
As we're talking about away days, and as it's Christmas time, and you two both played a huge part in it as well, we've got to talk about Newcastle away on New Year's Day, 1990. I mean, Robbie, that must have been one of the all-time great away days.
It was absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. Obviously, the story of the fans getting up in chartered flights and all that. The amount of fans that we took up that day, 4,000 or 5,000 behind the goals, but also to put in a performance that we did. And beat them 4-1. It's as well as we probably played over the period of 2 or 3 years initially whenever we first got into the championship, you know, and Bully scoring the 4 goals. Everything about it was just crazy. New Year's Day, the fans chartering flights, Bully scoring 4, us winning 4-1, how we played the game as well. And obviously having a bit of a night out the night before as well, which went down well with some of the lads, you know.
Mutchy, tell us about that night out, or it was a night in the hotel, wasn't it? But it turned into a night out in the hotel. What happened the night before the game?
Well, it was obviously New Year's Eve, wasn't it? And there was all sorts of parties going on in there. And the gaffer, right out of his comfort zone, because he'd never do this, he said, you can just have a couple of quiet ones, you know. So imagine saying that to young lads who are having a couple of drinks, and then they're having more and more and more. And I remember that Phyllis off Coronation Street was with a family all dressed to the nines in a gown and all this, you know, and she walked past me, and I said to her, all right, Phyllis, are you still giving Percy one? And she went, too right, I am, she said. And we were laughing like mad. So it was all fun, you know. So anyway, then Bully's going, come on, we'll go to the nightclub. And I said, we're kicking off at 12 o'clock, Bully. So we had a bit of a debate about it, and obviously decided not to go to the nightclub. Just to cut a long story short on that. So when Bully gets on the coach after the game, he shouts down to the bus, hey, do you know they're Newcastle players? I went, what? He says, they must have gone to the nightclub because we battered them, you know what I mean? But the funny thing was, when we finished the game and we got back on the coach, we had all bottles of Newcastle Brown and everything on there as well, you know. So we obviously didn't have enough the night before, did we?
I remember coming out for the bit of a warm down or a warm up. Then the next morning, they used to go on a bit of grass, Mutchy, didn't they? Just to stretch your legs and all for the journey and all that sort of stuff. And I must admit that I only had a couple of pints the night before because I used to be terrible for travelling and all that sort of stuff. I hated travelling, so I didn't feel like many beers. But one of the centre forwards that we had come to me and he said, "I'm struggling here. You know, I've been sick all for most of the night." Right, and I says, "Well, Mutchy, oh sorry, I didn't mean to say Mutchy. Mutchy, you better go. Mutchy, you better go and tell the gaffer because I'm not. You know what I mean?" So the lads were struggling a little bit, but they got a bit of fresh air into them, and as I said, we played absolutely fantastic that day. We thought we cracked it. At the end of it all the lads thought they cracked it. You know, this is the way to go. You know, but I was soon put to bed over the next couple of games.
What about the supporters? How aware were you of the big airlift? That there's so many of them. I think there was 6 Boeing 737s.
For them all to go there, what an effort by them all, you know what I mean? And luckily for us, we put in a good performance and obviously won the game 4-1. But we were so aware of what was going on. It was documented on the news before, in the week before we played them and all that type of stuff. But it's a great occasion. Brilliant.
But it's a proper away day, Johnny, isn't it? You know what I mean? Where New Year's Eve, has any of the lads actually got to bed, really? You know what I mean? They have to be at the airport for, say, 6 o'clock in the morning to get a flight up to Newcastle. And it's New Year's Eve, so most of the lads would not have got to bed anyway, straight on the flight, and then you're off and running again, you know what I mean? So it's, but as much as you said, to put in the performance that we did, and to enjoy it the way we did, because if you still need to win the game, don't you? Really, just to round things off, you still need to win a game of football, and then everybody goes home happier, even more happier than what they actually said about doing it. But it was just a fantastic day, and one that I don't think you'll ever forget, really.
Do you remember many of the fans in fancy dress as well? Because a lot of them went up there in fancy dress. There was like Sylvester the Cat, the Pink Panther, Santa Claus, all sorts. I don't know if you noticed any of that.
Can't remember that. But I do remember the Newcastle fans all in black and white Santa outfits, you know what I mean? I can't really remember them being dressed up myself. I don't know if Robbie did or not.
No, I didn't know. I thought they were just invited to the game. I didn't know they were dressed up.
Yeah, there was quite a lot of Wolves fans went up in fancy dress. There was a report, I think, on Central News that night about it, quite a famous one, and they were having photographs on the tarmac outside the planes, and they were all dressed in all sorts of clobber. So
but as I say, they probably come straight from clubs, haven't they?
Yeah, that's
some of them probably have, and they just out for the night and decided, here we go, we'll go like this. And off they go. But it's just fantastic. Just fantastic.
Newcastle was obviously one of the great away days, but there were some sort of low-profile ones where they moved the fixtures around. Do you ever remember Southend United always seemed to make their fixtures on a Friday night? I don't know if have either of you played in those Friday night games?
Oh, I remember playing at Southend on a few occasions, you know. That's where we got Shane Wesley from, you know. He had a great game one night, and I think the gaffer signed him on the back of that. But you know, Tranmere Rovers as well, they played on a Friday night, but it was quite strange really, because when you play on a Friday, you didn't know what to do with yourself on a Saturday because you're so used to playing every Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock, you know. I enjoyed the night games, don't get me wrong, but Tuesday, Wednesday night was better than Friday, I think, because I like playing on a Saturday, if you know what I'm saying.
The one, I remember the Southend one was, obviously, we went on a run at the end of the season, much of the first season I joined. It was the old 4th Division. And I think Southend just pipped us for 3rd place, didn't it? They went up automatic, and we ended up in the playoffs that first season. Yeah. But the Friday night game, we lost 1-0 to them, and it was the only game we had lost in the last, I think it was 12 games. I think we won the other 11. Right. And if that result had gone the other way, then we'd have got promoted ourselves. We'd have gone up automatically ourselves. But that's the only one really I remember Friday night. But you're right. Saturday was always best for us. Tuesday night under lights, and then Saturday afternoon 3 o'clock was always the best times. And now you get times all through the week, don't you? You know, it's hard to keep up. Oh, but it's wrong. It's wrong because people can't.
There was two results on Saturday, you know, Rob, in the Premier League, right? 2 games, right, at 3 o'clock, right? Yeah. And then there was one at R5 and one at 8 o'clock, which is us Wolves, yeah? Yeah. Right? So there's only 4 games played on the day. And you think, unbelievable, when they were doing the full-time scores, there was, at half-5, 2 games in the Premier League. Sorry, Johnny.
Mutchy, you're right. You just can't plan your weeks in advance, really, with regards to football now, can you? It used to be so simple. We'll meet the lads in 3 or 4 weeks' time on a Saturday afternoon and go for a beer and stuff. And now they're all over the place. Sunday afternoons, even Thursday nights. There's games like in Europe and stuff, and it's just madness.
It's also shown how much it's changed and how the clubs are less reliant on supporters now, because when you were playing, gate receipts were a big thing, and I imagine particularly in the 3rd and 4th division, the gate receipts from a Wolves match meant a lot to the teams you were travelling to, whereas now the broadcast rights, swamp any gate receipts that the clubs bring in, and that's why the clubs have all signed up. The Premier League clubs have signed up to these broadcast deals where they're happy to move the matches about, and of course the people who suffer are the fans.
Well, do you know what, Johnny, right? I agree with you totally. And I'm a big believer. Back in the day, the fans came through the turnstile, and that's where a lot of the money came in to help pay for everything. But nowadays with the TV, right, I think it's a disgrace, these Premier League clubs, right, that charge fortunes for people to go to the match, you know what I mean? I think even Robbie mentioned to me, Wolves are charging something like 50, 60 quid a ticket or something. I think they're the cheapest, I'm not sure. I don't know my facts on that one, if I'm being truthful, but if you took a leaf out of Bayern Munich, who give tickets away and charge £10 or whatever it is, €10 for them to get in the games because it's the community and it's the local supporters, and I look at the likes of Wolves, Liverpool, and you say, well, you could halve the costs of every single seat in the ground, and they'd still be absolutely fine, making all sorts of profits through the TV rights and that, and it's only us that pay for it, because get Sky, then all of a sudden BT take over, then they change it to TNT, then before you know it, you're watching it on Prime Video. Now apparently they've sold it to Discovery Plus, the Champions League next season. So it's big revenue streams coming in, and ultimately the clubs want to look at themselves and say, well, it's a working class game. Okay, it's changed slightly in the prawn sandwich brigade and all that type of stuff. A lot of corporate going on. I really do believe that they should look at themselves and start reducing it. And, you talk about the World Cup and what they're going on about the cost for people from countries that are not so well off, and they've qualified, and their supporters want to go because it's probably the first and only time they'll ever go to this World Cup, and they're charging £3,000 a ticket and things like that. I think it's crazy, me.
Yeah, that is the ultimate away day, going to the World Cup. And there was a thing that came out today where Steve Clarke, the Scotland manager, actually went on television and advised Scottish supporters not to get themselves in debt and in serious trouble because of the costs of it. And it's so sad that he's had to go and do that. I remember the first World Cup I went to as a fan was France 98. We were getting into games for around 25, 30 quid mark. I think I paid 50 quid for an England ticket, but it was sort of, that was a bit higher, but it was much more affordable, and that, if we're talking about away days, it's the ultimate trip, that, isn't it, watching your country play in a major tournament. But yeah, Steve Clarke's had to go and go out and make a plea to Scotland fans not to get themselves in trouble. And that wider point you're making about pricing is so spot on. Where a lot of ill will and a lot of the fans' feeling towards Jeff Shee came from was when he put ticket prices up a year and a half ago, inexcusable in a way. It was a really, really poor decision, given how much extra revenue, what a tiny fraction of extra revenue it gave the club. And what it was doing and hitting fans hard in the pocket. There is a cap at the moment in the Premier League for away tickets, rather. We only paid 30 quid each for a ticket at Arsenal on Saturday, which was great. But I'm not sure how much longer that will be in
I think it might be changing this year, Johnny, is it? After this season. So it'll be interesting to see what it goes to then. But everything's such a contradiction, really, Johnny, because you look at FIFA, as Mutchy said, and FIFA are saying, we want to take the World Cup around the world and into every country and show everybody that it's, everybody's can get to it and see the World Cup and all, and then the prices like this, and there's only a fraction of people who can actually afford to go to it now, and they say they want to, and they have taken it to Qatar and stuff like that, and it's purely financial. It's purely people, I think, on ego trips as well, really, you know what I mean? And it's taking it away from the normal fans. And it's the same in the Premier League. It's a case where, yes, they're getting broadcasting rights now, right? But in some scenarios, like Wolves aren't looking great this season. They possibly will go down. The way things stand at the moment, they possibly will go down. So
Possibly.
are they well, listen, you live in hope. If they won the next 10 games, Johnny, they might survive, No, but you know what I mean. But all I'm saying is that the owners, they're relying on those broadcasting rights all the time, and they're thinking they're going to last forever. They'll be fine, blah blah blah. You know what I mean? But all of a sudden, if that's to happen, clubs start struggling. Where are they getting the support from then? It's not coming from abroad and all, is it really? It has to be local. They have to look after the local people. They have to look after the local kids so they can go to games and make it affordable for them. Because if they don't, then they're going to cut their own throat sometimes, at some point, because the heart of the club should always be in the community, and especially a club like Wolverhampton. We've grown up with it a lot, with myself and Mutchy, and yourself as well, Johnny. And you know what the support's like. They love the club. Locally and all, the fans absolutely love the club. So they should be treated fair. Prices should be fair. Families should be able to go together, and that's the way it should be. But unfortunately, it's heading away from that. And every season that goes past, it's heading more and more away from it.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there, and I think a lot of fans will sort of really appreciate you making that point, because it is absolutely going further and further away. I think Wolves are in for a massive shock next season when they possibly get relegated, because I think gates will fall off the cliff, and they'll be in for a fright when most of the ground will probably be empty. But I mean, that's perhaps a doomsday scenario. We'll see what happens.
But do you know what, Johnny? Yeah, it will affect the attitude, right? It will affect the club and stuff. But you know what fans are like as well. But if they can get a pitch or a team on the pitch that'll start winning games again, then the fans will support it again. You know what I mean? There's just a toxic atmosphere at the minute, which isn't great. And it's affecting everybody, players and fans, and everybody's within the club. But the Wolves fans, they'll stick with their club. I know that. Whether they like the owners or not, they'll definitely stick with their club.
I agree with that to some degree, but I just feel with the current ticket prices that there'll be a lot who walk away and probably won't have the stomach for paying those sorts of prices again. I mean, we are going slightly off topic, I guess. What I will say is that I do think away support will always hold up. I think Wolves could get down as many divisions as you want. I always think the away support would hold up. When Wolves most recently went down to League One and Kenny Jackett took over, the away followings were fantastic. I remember going up to Carlisle, actually covering them for a midweek soccer special for Sky. The away following was absolutely fantastic. It's huge numbers for a midweek game in Carlisle. I think there's something, I don't know what you think, but I think there's something special about going away to watch your team.
Oh, most definitely. It is. It's a day out, isn't it? They're all together. They've all got the same thoughts of what they're doing. They're all going to the match, all probably having a few beers and something to eat somewhere. And it's like a unity in it to a degree. Away days are actually more exciting than home games, really, in one sense. I mean, obviously you go to the home match because it's local, but going away is, and you're seeing all the rival teams and fans and all that, and they make for great days, don't they?
I think it's the atmosphere they create, isn't it? I think the lads who actually go want to create an atmosphere for their team, whether it's 1,500, 2,000, whatever it is. And I think that's what you get. And obviously a couple of beers helps along the way, doesn't it, really, just to put them in full voice. But I think when you come home to games and you've got your 30,000 there, you've got probably 20,000 sitting waiting for something to happen before they actually get involved in the game. So the way fans have always been, more a larger voice in what they've said, and always wanting to take on the opposing fans with regards to making a bit of noise. So it's if you get a group of lads going away from home, it's good crack.
Yeah, it's far more tribal, isn't it? Whatever the beef with the team at any particular time, it's all about trying to make as much noise as possible in opposition territory. And the atmosphere, I have to say, at the Emirates in the away end was fantastic on Saturday night. The fans were properly backing the team. There was lots of, quite rightly, because supporters have a right to protest. There was still lots of sentiments towards the ownership, but there was huge backing for Rob Edwards and his players, and it was great to hear the support they got as well. And they almost carried it off, but they didn't. And that's where going out for a few beers afterwards maybe nullified the pain a little bit. But there you go.
But Johnny, you always go out for a few beers, don't you? It doesn't matter if they win, lose or draw, does it? You always go for a few beers, don't you?
That's probably the best bit of an away day. But there we go. Listen, lads, thanks ever so much for jumping on board for this podcast. If you're listening to it before Christmas, then have a great Christmas and New Year. And enjoy your travels, Wolves fans, wherever you go, home and away. Andy, Robbie, any last thoughts?
Merry Christmas to everyone.
Yep, absolutely. And hopefully there's a win around the corner for all of us. It's sorely needed.
There's one coming.
Let's hope so. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Mutchy and Denno. You can also email the show with any comments, which is mutchyanddenno@outlook.com. And do get in touch if you are keen on sponsorship opportunities, because we are looking to take the podcast forward, and any support would be most welcome. But from all of us for now, thanks for listening.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.